cold open question of the day. We have Zach Cohen here with us, Wes Goldberg here with me as always. Guys, the NBA has a new All-Star game format. Multiple teams, a little tournament, and All-Star weekend, and yet another attempt to fix All-Star weekend. Zach, as the guest, I want to ask you first. What are your thoughts on this? Are you into this new format for All-Star weekend?
I'm into it if they're into it. I would just like to see them compete in any way, shape, or form. I think it would have been cool if they were able to just play a full 48-minute game and just actually try. I don't know why they couldn't do it, but it is what it is. Like, they're tired after that long weekend of events. I'm fine with the shorter format, the pickup style. It should be fun to watch. I'm interested in seeing what it looks like, though, obviously.
Yeah, I'm intrigued just in the way that they keep changing the format in different ways. And I'm at the point now where just do it every year. Change it every year. Like, that's the thing. Like, if we can't establish consistency, then just be consistent in the inconsistency. Just like, and every year we just look forward to what are they going to do this time? That to me would be interesting. So just do this.
Pull a stipulation out of a hat.
Right. You just do a random drawing. Yeah. Have the captains decide how they want to do it. We do it backwards this year. It's fine.
This is what I don't. Have either of you or both of you watched The Office?
Yeah.
Yep.
Okay, so this is what this made me think of.
Is this like Office Olympics?
No, this is the the episode Threat Level Midnight where Michael Scott in his fake movie believes the pro hockey All-Star game is the most important thing in the world. Like, he doesn't pick the NHL Finals, he doesn't pick the Super Bowl, he picks the hockey All-Star game as the biggest game. The NBA seems to have like a Michael Scott brain that they think the All-Star weekend is so important that they have to tinker with this and make it good. The All-Star game is not a thing where like I give a shit if the basketball is good. Like, it's
Nobody
just
cares.
is there so nobody cares. It is there so you can see stars and kids can go and have a good time and like no one gets hurt. That is all. Like they're trying too hard to do this is my take. Like they're looking at this as like, because it's a TV product, they get it that it's like the biggest thing in the world when it's literally like the 15th biggest issue faced in the NBA.
I would say, from Adam Silver's perspective, if there's a blemish on his tenure, it's that the reputation for the NBA is that the players don't try hard enough and they don't play enough. And if the All-Star weekend is sort of like one of these marquee things that, like, to your point, Chris, like nobody actually cares about it, but if you're the NBA, you do put a lot of money and importance into it, and it's just like nobody's even trying. Like, the All-Stars aren't even trying. Like, then who's trying? So I understand Adam Silver's like reasoning of I just need to make it at least look like people are trying, even though I do agree it's a little silly.
All right, on today's show, we've got Zach here to talk Cooper Flagg and look at him in the draft. And Wes and I are going to look at the top 20 players in the league later in the episode and talk about how, as much as we have parity with teams, we're seemingly having parity with players this year. That's coming up today on the Just Basketball Show.
Spectacular move by Michael Jordan. LeBron James with no regard for human life.
What is up, everyone? Welcome into the Just Basketball Show. I'm Chris Manning. Wes Goldberg here, as always, is my co-host. Special guest Zachary Cohen at Betting on X on Twitter. NBA draft guru here to talk Cooper Flagg with us. But Wes, before we get into that, why don't you tell everyone about BetMGM?
I got the copy up this time. BetMGM. If you haven't signed up for BetMGM yet, use the bonus code JUSTBasketball and you'll get up to $1,500 in a first bet offer on your first wager with BetMGM. Here is how it works. Download the BetMGM Sportsbook app on iOS or Android. Sign up using the code JUSTBasketball. Deposit at least $10 and place your first wager on any game. You'll receive up to $1,500 back in bonus bets if that bet loses. Just make sure that you use that bonus code JUSTBasketball when you sign up. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Must be 21 years or older to wager. Terms and conditions apply.
Also got to tell you about Homage. Homage is the ultra-comfortable specialty apparel company with NBA and WNBA licenses. They use its vintage-inspired designs to pay homage to the greatest stories, traditions, and figures across sports, music, and popular culture. Use the link below to make your purchase and support the Just Basketball Show. They have their great starter collection where they have all kinds of NBA starter pullovers and jackets, including a very cool, I hate to say it, Boston Celtics 18-time world championship jacket. Yeah, and Wes, we boo them, but it is a good jacket. You got to put some respect on it when you have to here. And they just launched an X-Men collection, which, if you're an X-Men fan, they have Magneto and the Beast and all kinds of cool stuff there. So check that out. Homage, use the link below. All right, Zach, Cooper Flagg, consensus number one for next year. I don't think anyone is going to challenge that. I don't think anyone is going to think differently about that. But when you look at him and you have your own take on him compared to every other draft pick people can find, is he to you in generational prospect? Let's set the table. Like, where exactly is Cooper Flagg? What exactly is Cooper Flagg to you?
Yeah, I think he is generational, honestly. Like, you can't do the best prospect since thing because Victor Wembanyama was drafted 2 years ago, so it kind of ruins that. But this is a phenomenal prospect, and it's really because of what he does on the defensive end of the floor. So I guess he is kind of like Wembanyama in that phase, but this is one of the best defensive prospects that we're going to see in a very long time. Guards multiple positions, probably 1 through 5 at the college level, 1 through 4 in the NBA, unless he puts on a little bit more size. But, a 6'9" ultra athletic wing that, blocks a lot of shots, creates havoc in passing lanes, can guard guards at a very high level, can guard really any spot on the floor. I just think this is a player that is special in the way that he is gifted naturally, but also in the way that he is wired, because he cares about defense in a way that you don't see a lot of prospects. So I think that's what excites me the most about him, is that side of the floor gives him such a high floor because people are always going to want him out there. But obviously he's also a great offensive player. And I know people want to poke holes in his game a little bit on that end of the floor, but there really aren't that many to poke. I mean, this year you're already kind of seeing all of the Cooper Flagg experience at Duke. Like, he's averaging 16 points, almost 10 rebounds a game, but he's shooting only 22% from three. Had the struggles late in the game against Kentucky when Duke was relying on him to create some offense. But I think a lot of that could be explained by the poor spacing that you see at the college level and the poor spacing that he has at Duke, especially where he's playing next to a big man that can't space the floor. And Kaman Maluach, who is another top 10 prospect in this draft. But it's a team that definitely could have used a floor spacing 5 next to him in order to bring out the best in his abilities offensively, but still just such a good playmaker, a guy that can get downhill, can create for his teammates at a very high level. And I kind of buy the jumper. I know that other people don't, but it's a really nice looking shot and a very high release. Like, at the very least, it's going to be very difficult to block it.
It's interesting that you started with the defensive end there, because you hear so much about Cooper Flagg, about how he really took it to Team USA and in Las Vegas over the summer and all these things. I don't feel like, and maybe I'm just not like plugged into like the NBA draft conversation right now, it doesn't feel like the conversation starts with the defensive end with Cooper Flagg. So, one of the most versatile defenders that you've seen in a long time as a prospect. I mean, what are we exactly talking about in terms of sort of what that translates to day one for him?
Yeah, I mean, I think this is going to be the end of the floor that people are going to be talking about by the end of the season. I mean, if you asked him, there's a video somewhere out there where they asked him for player comparisons for himself, and the guy he gave was Jonathan Isaac. And that's kind of where I think he is as a defensive player. Like, he can really smother you as an on-ball defender. He comes up with some of like the craziest weak side shot blocks you've ever seen. Like, this is like a LeBron level, like, pin you on the backboard coming from behind, defender. I think that he's going to be special on that end of the floor. And I think that the offense is something that is going to need to come around a little bit. It's still in a really good place, but what's keeping him back from being viewed as like the consensus number one is, a lack of a jumper, I guess, and a lack of like a killer instinct as a scorer.
I think there's an interesting conversation, guys, I think to have to some degree about like what number one picks are starting to look like. Like, I think the last couple of years we've started to see these picks at the top of the draft have to have like a real defensive pulse. Like, you're getting like Wembanyama is obviously like a freak, but like Cooper Flagg as a generational guy is the same, not the same exact thing, but it's like another guy that part of the reason he's up there is the defense, right? Like, you're willing to figure out the offensive stuff, even if it's like an untraditional way of looking at these number one picks. He's also a guy that the Jonathan Isaac thing is interesting comp. It's like, obviously, if he's Jonathan Isaac as a number one pick with the hype he has, that would, in a lot of ways, I think, be a disappointment. But he's a guy, and Zach, tell me if I think that's wrong, if the right team gets him at 1, even if the offense and the jumper takes a year, 2 years to really round out, does that defensive floor give that team who gets him a chance to improve year 1 just because of what he's going to be able to do on the defensive end?
100%. And sorry, the Jonathan Isaac thing, I think, is the way he views himself defensively. Offensively, it's not like he's
but out of context, it's hilarious. It's just hilarious to be like, it's like who is that prospect who's like, Paul George is my GOAT? The kids are
Brandon Miller.
Brandon Miller, yeah.
Yeah, the kids are just saying wild stuff, like, and I respect their hoop knowledge, and guys, it's just funny to me when guys say stuff like that.
Yeah, I think that offensively though, he's like, I think people view him kind of like as a Pippen, like a really good number two that sets the table for a number one, but can also score when you need him to. He compared himself in the same video. I should have mentioned this too, to Jason Tatum, not just Jonathan Isaac.
That's the one I had.
But,
Okay.
Yeah. But he's definitely like, he is a 3-level scorer. Like he's a guy that can get to the basket. He can pull up off the jumper. He can knock down, catch and shoot threes. It's not happening at the clip that you want it to. But yeah, I started with the defense because I think if you are Jonathan Isaac defensively, that's a very good place to be. That might be the best defender, best defensive wing in the league. So I really like that comparison. I like that he viewed himself that way, and that's who he watches film of. But definitely better offensively than I just gave him credit for.
So I've watched 6 minutes of Cooper Flagg so far, all highlight stuff. So I preface everything I'm about to say with that because it's important. But what stuck out to me in the 6-minute highlight package was he plays the game like a professional already. Am I wrong on that? Like he makes smart reads. He's obviously got a basketball IQ. He just does the stuff that, I think a lot of times we see rookies and they're just trying to like flourish, right? Or even young prospects are like, let me just get my shots off. Let me show you my bag and all this stuff. And he's like, I don't care if you see my bag. I don't really care about that. This is the right read. Let me hit this guy on the pick and roll. Let me take, like, this guy went under on the screen. I'm just going to pull up, catch and shoot. I'm not going to, dribble between my legs and do all this stuff. And sometimes I just feel like we are waiting for young players to get to the point where they've sort of worked all of that out of their system, where it feels like Flagg is already there. Is that an accurate statement or not?
Yeah, definitely. Like I think he's very, very polished and very there as a high IQ player. Kind of always makes the right reads. Like he has a really good feel for when he needs to get himself going as a scorer, but also for when he needs to go out and get his teammates shots. I think that you've seen him struggling with that a little bit at Duke so far. Like it is a team that is loaded with talent, and that's sometimes is a problem for these prospects. Like they don't know what to do in terms of sharing the wealth. And there are other NBA prospects on this team. Like I mentioned, Maluach, there's Kon Knipple. This is a guy that is trying to fit in on a really good team, so that's going to be hard for him, but very much a pro playing the college game right now, and that's going to actually be hard for him because, like I said before, the spacing, it just feels like such a small court, and he's a guy that is going to flourish in NBA spacing.
Yeah, he could almost be better in the NBA.
For sure. Like with 100% going to look much better when there's like spread pick and rolls and he has a lot of room to operate.
Have you learned, I mean, it's 4 games, really, this isn't like a large sample. I mean, we're going to check in with you at some point again, Zach, on him and Ace Bailey and the rest of what is, I think, perceived to be a really good draft class. But is there anything you've picked up about him aside from the fact that, okay, more space for him in the future will be a good thing? Is there anything else you feel like you've learned about him in his start to his college career at Duke?
I think just the unselfishness. Like I think that you can see a number one player come in and kind of want to be the focal point of the team and, be really eager to just get out there and jack up shots, but he has not changed at all in the way he plays the game. Like I said before, he takes what he gets. Like there's going to be games where he's going to try to be aggressive as a scorer, and there are going to be games where it's not going to be there for him. He's going to use his size, his athleticism, and his, just really good passing ability to, set up shots for other players. I think that that's been on display early. I think that there was a really bad moment or two at the end of that Kentucky game that he will learn from, and that's just something that I'm interested in seeing moving forward is how he responds as like a late game closer for them, or if they even use him in that role.
Yeah, he turned his back on those last plays, and maybe that's just like the spacing, but the picking up the dribble, turning your back. I mean, that's the kind of stuff that, like, when you say I'm kind of intrigued to see how he responds to it. Like, what does he do in that kind of situation going forward? That got the headlines, obviously, like those 2 turnovers at the end of that game. Like, how big of a deal do you think that actually is?
I don't think it's that big of a deal. Like he just made some mistakes. He did play a really good game outside of that. I just think a lot of it's going to come down to him kind of feeling himself out as a scorer. Like that's the part of his game that people are waiting to see develop. I think that the jumper, if that continues to come along, like it's going to be easier for him to get shots for himself as a mid-range pull-up guy. And then also going to the basket, if people have to, be up on his shot a little bit more, it's going to make it easier on him to explode and get to the basket. So I just think he's going to have to continue to improve that jumper. And I do think he's going to do it. He's a pretty good free throw shooter. He shoots like 80% from the free throw line. His mechanics are pretty good. There's really no reason to doubt him as a scorer. So I do think he's going to figure it out. But yeah, you just want to kind of see it.
When you think about what you want to see this year, aside from maybe what we've talked about, Zach, is there something you want to see? I mean, the jumper I think stands out as the obvious one. maybe more close game situations where he gets a chance to quote unquote redemption compared to what happened in the Kentucky game. But when you think about what is to come for him and what you want to learn, what are you looking for? What are the things you want to pick up as this year goes on?
Yeah, so I think there's the stuff with him creating for himself as a scorer, but also just general catch and shoot opportunities. Like I'd like to see him making those at about 35% or better. I mean, like you really want to see that from a player that's going to be the focal, the face of your franchise at the next level. Like he's going to go number one in this draft. He's going to have to be able to knock down open shots when he gets them. So I'm really interested in seeing what that looks like the rest of the season. I haven't pulled up the synergy stats or anything yet. I don't know how he's shooting on open catch and shoot looks, but I do think that's going to be really big for me as I look forward. But having said that, like I don't really think he's at risk of, being number 2 in this draft. Like I think he's going to be number 1. I know that there's going to be a case made for guys like Ace Bailey, but I do think that there's a lot that separates the two of them right now.
So the word on him, and I did ask around a little bit, like smart, super competitive, like puts the work in, all that stuff. Like, is that what kind of you're hearing about him? Just sort of like the character, the makeup.
Yeah, it sounds like he's like the dream of like a number 1 pick. Like you got him into your system and it's going to be perfect. Like it doesn't seem like there are any problems. I think that we learned last summer, the Team USA thing, like he's competitive, he's confident. All the players kind of raved about him there. So I think that all of those things in terms of intangibles, leadership, like those are there. That's the caliber of a number 1 pick as well, which is perfect match. It's like a match made in heaven for a top pick to be that good as like a leader and character guy. It's unbelievable.
Zach, we talked before the show about we're not going to do like best fits or anything like that, and we're not going to do that because it's too early to do that. Can I just tell you based on how they play, what I think would be my favorite fit for him, and you can tell me if that's crazy or not?
Go for it.
I want him to play for Jordy Fernandez on the Brooklyn Nets.
That would be pretty awesome. I mean, I think that Fernandez is like the ultimate players coach and will just kind of give him the opportunity to grow in his offensive game. So I would really like to see that. I am weirdly interested in seeing what he would look like in Washington, just kind of like if Sarr does develop as a 3-point shooter. I know I see that face.
The Wizards just like need to prove to be normal for like a full season before I can be like,
I'm not sure I'm interested in seeing how anybody is on the Wizards right now.
Well, I'm talking about in Virginia.
Right. Maybe the relocation will help.
Yeah.
So if you are taking him number 1 beyond the Tatum and Isaac comparisons, like let's say, Zach, you're a general manager. You've got the number 1 pick. You're taking Cooper Flagg. What are you hoping he turns into? Like, what's the vision there?
I think that like Jason Tatum's like the dream, obviously. I mean, he compares himself to that. There are similarities there, like outside of the jumper. Like if the jumper does come along, maybe that's what he turns into. Like he's a 6'9" wing that just moves really well, moves differently on the court. He has really good, like just ability to kind of change up speeds. He knows how to get himself to the basket. I think his handle has gotten really, really good to the point that like you have no trouble like envisioning him just kind of grabbing and going at the NBA level. I think that he dribbles a little high, he dribbles a little stiff. Like he's just kind of like a big uptight player, but it's going to get better. The further he gets into his career. And I think he's the type of person that you want to roll the ball out to and just run a lot of offense to him. I don't think it's like quite like a Cade Cunningham where it's like he's your point guard, but you want to have the ball in his hands a lot.
So if it doesn't work out for him, like what would be the reason why?
I can't imagine it not working out to the point that like you're upset you took him number 1. But if he doesn't become like the generational player that he's been considered his entire career, it's probably just because he's not shooting the 3 well enough. I mean, that's really what it comes down to with him. He's so good at everything else. He's a really good cutter. He's a really good rebounder. He plays really well off the ball, like for a guy that's not, just a knockdown shooter yet. But I do think that's going to come along, maybe not to the point where he is Tatum, but I just don't see him being a really terrible shooter. And I think that that's the only thing that would really make him kind of like a bust.
The last thing, Zach, at least for me, this rest of the draft class outside of Cooper Flagg, I know Ace Bailey's a name everyone has heard a bunch. I think Dylan Harper as well. Is there anyone else in this draft class that maybe doesn't get to the Cooper Flagg tier, doesn't push him, but that you're excited to see how they rise and you're higher on as we get deeper into watching college basketball and prepping for next year's draft?
Yeah, I mentioned to you guys off the show and a little bit over email. I think that BYU's Jaeger Demon is a player that's going to really contend for that number 2 spot, honestly. I know that Bailey is the number 2 guy right now. I think a lot of people talk about his Tate Harper potentially being a number 2 pick. Demon is like a guy that I just think he's a dream for a front office executive. He's a 6'9" point guard pretty much that creates very effortlessly out of the pick and roll. He has a really nice looking jumper. He's kind of made threes at every level. He played for Real Madrid before heading to BYU. This is a guy that I think that I just said that Flagg isn't someone that you want to roll the ball out to and like run your offense completely through him. I think that Demon is. I think that this is like a Cade Cunningham or Luka Doncic, like big initiator that is going to get the job done at the next level. I think that there are concerns a little bit about how skinny he is, but I've seen some videos on YouTube. Like he's working effortlessly on that. Like they are force feeding him calories. Like they're going to get him, the muscle that he needs, especially once he starts working with NBA trainers. But a special offensive player that I think he's going to win a lot of people over once we get to Big 12 season.
Is there anybody that can push Flagg for number one?
That's the only one that I think that if I were picking, it would make me a little bit nervous about passing on him. So he's not there yet. He's not in that conversation yet, but I do think he will get there to the point where it's not going to be anyone talking about him passing Flagg, but like there will be those stories towards the end of the year where it's like, should Demon be the number one pick? And the answer is probably no, but it's the talk on these talk shows. So,
got it.
Actually, one last thing I'll ask you, and then we'll let you go, Zach. Is this this Duke team, is this a good development situation for him with the other, top 10 talent on this team and whatnot? Is this a good development situation for Cooper Flagg?
I weirdly don't think it is. I mean, he has a really good two-man game going right now with Knipple, who's like an awesome shooter and going to be a top 10 pick in this draft, as I mentioned before. And like playing with him definitely helps because you're seeing like two-man action with an NBA level floor spacer. But I wish that he was playing next to a better, group of shooters overall. I think that if you were playing next to a center that could space the floor a little bit, we'd get a much better idea of how good he is offensively. I just think that this situation, like as great as Duke, I'm sure it is. Like I have no idea. I hate Duke. I'm a Wisconsin fan. They beat me in 2015, and I've never gotten over it. But I imagine it's a great place to play, and it's an awesome, historic program. But I don't think it's the best situation he could have been in.
So are you mad at Khan for leaving Wisconsin to go to Duke? Is he like how Tyler Hero became a traitor because he went to Kentucky? Is this the same energy we have here?
I don't blame these guys for not wanting to play for the Wisconsin Badgers. I'm realistic about where my team stands.
You're not taking my bait. It's unbelievable stuff.
Is UCF any good?
Oh, I mean, the answer is kind of always like maybe. I don't know. I haven't watched as much as I really want to at this point in the season, so I'll get to UCF eventually.
All right, let me know when you do.
All right. Find Zach on Twitter at betting on X. Zach, anything you want to plug as we get out of here?
No, I mean, NBA, I do a lot of NBA best bets and stuff over at vsin.com. I do end up covering the draft there from a betting angle towards the end of the season. Had a lot of fun doing that last year, but my draft stuff is all at Real GM, and I have some stuff up right now. I'm doing a little bit more regular NBA this year up until 2025. Once that starts, I'll really start firing away with player profiles like for a month or so.
All right, find Zach on Twitter again. Find his content, follow his betting stuff, and Wes and I are going to be back here in a moment. Talk about the top 20 players in the NBA. All right, Wes, it's me and you now. Top 20 players in the NBA. Can I just before we do this? I want to let you came up with the segment, so I want you to explain it first, and then I want to go through based on like EPM. I'm gonna give you the top 20 guys so far this year. And we can discuss like how like maybe that also isn't like the perfect reflection is the thing I was thinking about it when I was looking at it. But give me your thoughts on where we are as far as the best guys in the league so far this year.
Yeah, so I pitched this as a segment when we were talking about what we wanted to do today because I just sort of been thinking like for the years now, it felt like we had a really clear. We always kind of break it out into like round numbers, like who's the best player, who's the top 5, top 10 players in the league. But for years, it felt like we had a really solid top 7, like just like a real like that. These were the 7 sort of difference making, like could be the best player on a championship winning team, and it was hard to sort of differentiate between like 1 and 7, even in that tier. And then Nikola Jokic kind of breaks away and becomes, in my opinion, the no brainer, far and away best player on the planet. But then like 2 to 7 was still kind of there for a couple of years. But I'm kind of looking at it now, and I'm like, I don't know. Is there still like that top 7? I feel like there's a really clear top 2 or 3 at this point, and then like I feel like there's like another tier below that. But in terms of like best player on a championship winning team, I feel strongly about like 5 or 6 of these guys, and it doesn't really feel like there's many of those guys anymore, even though you could argue there's never been more talent in the NBA. It does feel like that top of this list is starting to kind of create different tiers and break away a little bit.
Yeah, I think we're seeing a change in the definition of what level of superstar you maybe need to win a title. That's sort of where I wonder if this is going, right? Like,
does it have to be better or worse? Or is that not even what you mean?
I think guys I think if you have the right team, it can be a little bit worse. Like, okay. I think you could have argued, let's say 5 years ago, that you could have nitpicked Tatum even and said, that is that guy the best guy in a championship team? And you would have maybe said no. I think you could say the same thing. Yeah, you could say the same thing about Shea. I think the Cavs are straight up a contender this year. Donovan Mitchell's a guy I think for a long time many of us wouldn't have thought is a clear-cut number one on a title contender. I think that was where he was. He was clearly a top 20 guy, but maybe not the best guy on a title team. It felt like he was going to need to be a number 2 to get there. Maybe that gets blown out of the water this year. I think that's the case. It feels like the post, maybe the Kawhi title, maybe the Giannis title, somewhere in there, this kind of shifted a little bit. Jokic, because like the Jokic one is sort of an anomaly of recent titles. It's a little bit different. Even I think the Steph title we got, the last one, doesn't quite even fit. None of his titles really fit like overwhelmingly best guy. Maybe the last one a little bit, but look at the talent he had, particularly for the last couple in Golden State before this last one. Like it's changing a little bit in front of us, and I think that is just naturally because of the amount of insane talent in the league right now. Like that, and probably there's like a numbers 3-point variance thing you could probably look up and work yourself into a theory that way. But I think it starts with more than anything else, Wes, with the fact that the league is insanely talented right now, and there's tons of guys that are phenomenal, even if they're flawed, and there's less of the dominating era-defining guys, it feels like.
I think that's fair, right? I think we're in a league now where depth is more important than ever, and I'm not even talking about like 12th, 13th, 14th guy, but like how good is your 5th guy? You know, how good is your 6th guy? I think that really matters. I think fit has never mattered more, right? When you talk about the Boston Celtics, how all those pieces just fit seamlessly, like you become greater than the sum of your parts if you have that depth and that fit. And so, yeah, then maybe if I have Jason Tatum firmly in my top 5, but I do have him a tier below like a Nikola Jokic, right? And so, you know, to me, I'm less interested in like where you are like ranked and sort of what tier you kind of occupy. So if we could just jump into it, do you want to start at the top of the list? So we're going to rank our top 20 players, but do you want to start at 1 or at 20?
Let's start at 1 and work our way down, because I think that's a little more direct.
Yeah, I think that's even more interesting. Yeah.
So Jokic is number 1 to me. I think he's the best player in basketball and remains so.
Jokic is the best player on the planet. So LeBron James, in my opinion, was the best player in the world for 10 years running, maybe even more than that. And it was, to me, it was always, okay, he's the best, but who's second best? And that was sort of the argument, is it Giannis? Is it Kevin Durant? Is it Dwayne Wade in certain years? Like, who is it going to be? You know, now Jokic is the first player since LeBron occupied that I feel that way. I thought the crown was up there for like a couple of years there. Jokic grabbed it, and he's far and away the best player on the planet. Luka, to me, is number 2. I feel pretty good about that. I just feel like he's going, no matter what, and I know he's having a down year right now, but I don't, like, get away from the small sample size and all that kind of stuff. Like, 2 guys in the league who always are going to create a good shot for their offense is Jokic and Luka. You feel good when they have the ball in their hands, and both of them have these like incredible clutch shot making skills. They shoot it from everywhere on the court. They're completely unpredictable, right? Like Jokic, when he shoots a game winner, you don't know where it's coming from. You don't know what he's going to do in the final 2 minutes of a game. Luka, you know, generally like he wants to get a high screen, kind of navigate the floor, but you don't really know where he's going to end up or where that shot's coming from. Right. And I just think that they're hitting levels that nobody else is hitting, so more consistently. So, did you have Luka at number 2?
I have Luka too. It would have been Embiid before coming into this year, but it's just that things have been a little bit wonky with him, and it's hard to know exactly what standard he's going to hit when this thing fully gets rolling in Philly. It's just like the energy there is kind of rubbed me the wrong way. Giannis, so I think Giannis, particularly the last 5 games that he's played and how good the Bucks have frankly looked reinvigorated the last 5 games and don't look as dead in the water as I might have thought. I think Giannis might be second in my MVP rankings if I were to do it right now. I think Jokic.
No,
would be
come
one.
on. They're 6 and 8.
I know he's. Just
We don't
been
have to do
really,
MVP talk. It's early.
No,
It's early.
No,
we don't
but
have to.
Giannis is still like at worst the 3rd best player in the world.
Yep, I have number 3.
Yeah.
I feel like we're doing this weird in terms of like rotating. Like we got to pick one list and then one of us goes and then the other one agrees or disagrees.
Maybe we should nominate guys to see if they belong in here somewhere. Is maybe the way we should do it.
Well, I have
guys
Shea.
like is this.
I have Shea number 4.
I kind of think Embiid should be 4 still. It's just like the level he plays at when he plays is just so high, and it's just a longer duration where I give him a little bit of an edge over Shea at this point. I'm not saying it's right, especially because this year's been so weird, but Embiid was a deserving MVP. He can put up mammoth numbers. He's clearly one of the most on-off impactful players in the league, a hub onto himself. I think he still should be 4 until we see the decline fully just happen in front of us.
Well, he's 30 years old, but his body is like 50 years old. I don't know. So to me, I'm thinking like I told you, I broke this up into tiers, and I have those are my 4. I've got Jokic, Luka, Giannis, and Shea. As I kind of labeled it my Brad Pitt tiers. Like as long as he's in the movie, it's got a chance to go blockbuster, right? It's got a chance to be big. Like these are your Brad Pitts. Like no, if you have him on your team, you have a chance. Embiid was there as recent as last year, but very clearly he's not that guy anymore. And I'm not that surprised. Like I said, he's getting older. There's been a lot of injuries, and if we subscribe to the best availability is the best ability is availability theory here, he's routinely not available. I can't get him into this tier. I can't. I would rather, if you were saying, would you rather have Embiid over Jokic, Luka, Giannis, or Shea? I would say absolutely not. I would rather have Shea.
Yeah, that's a good point. I'll give this one to you. Then I'm even, as we're thinking about this, I think you're going to put Tatum up at 5 then.
I have Tatum at 5.
Okay.
I have Tatum at 5. He is playing incredibly this year, by the way. And I was a Tatum skeptic. It's been well established. I'm a Celtics skeptic. Some may even say I'm a Celtics hater. I'm in on Jason Tatum. That guy is, first of all, he's shooting the lights out right now, but even when he's not, he does so many other things on the court that are helpful. He's not in that tier with those other 4 guys. He's in that next tier where he can be the best player on the championship winning team, but just the help has to be there. With the right roster, he could be the best player on the right roster, and you can win a championship. But he's not Brad Pitt, where he can carry the film. But like with like just a bunch of scrubs, like he can't do that. But he gives you a legitimate chance, maybe even a favorite chance, with the right roster around him.
I think there's an interesting Shea and Tatum conversation to have, because I think you could look at it and say the way these teams are built, I mean, they're asked to be different things, and it almost like hurts Tatum in this argument a little bit. Shea like has to be the force for OKC and like drive everything and make it all work. Tatum's team is like built for it to be a luxury. He can score like 16, and it probably doesn't matter that much on most nights. He doesn't score 16 on most nights because he's good, and I think he's a more versatile player than SGA is, but there's like this interesting tete-a-tete, I think, with what he has to do on a better team versus a guy that sets the tone. And I think I understand, I would agree that I would have Shea higher, but it's interesting that like we're putting the guy who's not as high behind the guy who's won a title, has made 2 finals, has won a ton of playoff games versus a guy that's like won one playoff series. Like there is something there to what we're rewarding.
If you want to just tell me it's a matter of taste, I'd be okay with that. Right.
Yeah,
like I think that's fair. Maybe it's just a matter of what roster you have. Right. I don't know that the Celtics would need Shea, and I don't know that the Thunder need Tatum. I think those rosters need those guys. And you know, that's obviously a chicken and the egg thing. You construct your rosters around your stars, but you know, I just generally give, like, for example, like Jokic and Luka are minuses defensively. You know, Jokic is a little bit closer to average, but they create so much offense, and I still think that the most valuable skill in the NBA is putting points on the damn board, that Shea just creates so much for himself and others, and he has to do it with such a degree of difficulty, to your point, Chris, that I give him a little bit of an edge here. But again, if you want to just tell me, like, if you say I think Tatum's better than Shea, I'd be like, okay. Like, I'm not going to argue strongly either way. I think it might just be a matter of taste.
I think
should I go to the next one?
I think it is a matter. Yeah, who do you have at 6?
I have Steph.
Okay.
I still have Steph. The intangibles, the leadership stuff, all of that. But you just see the effect. He still has like this crazy. It feels like it's almost building, right? Because the legend of Steph, the longer he's in the league, almost grows, even if he's not the same player he used to be.
Sure.
Like, the gravity is such that it's like he'll never. I don't know that he'll ever be lower than like the 15th best player in the league, because he impacts so much of what he's doing on the, like, when he's 40, he's still going to be one of the most impactful offensive players in the game, because you can't leave him. And he just creates openings for teammates literally without trying, and then oftentimes by trying, which just makes him that much better. Still moves without the ball a ton, which I love. It's his best quality. Does not give up. Super competitive. He's out there, and he's like one of those guys that just inspires his teammates. When he's out there, you can't help but like feel like the Warriors have a chance to win every game when Steph's out there, because like that possibility of him just going nuts and putting the other team night is always sort of lingering. And even when it doesn't happen, it kind of still feels like it's impacting the other team. Like there's a fear factor there. But even like beyond all like sort of those intangibles and sort of feely stuff, he's still really good. He's still really good, and he's only playing like 30 minutes a night. But he's been so impactful. He's great, man. He's still Steph. He's still up there.
His volume's a little bit down from 3, I think, because in large part because of the minutes. It's not really like a percentage of a shots thing. But his 3-point percentage this year would be his best percentage since he was 27, and he's 36. He's had seasons like about 40%. Obviously, he's only had like one season that was a full year under 40%. That was his age 33 season, and that was still at 38%. It's not like he was like 33%. He was still 38% from 3 on high volume. He's 7th in EPM on the year. He was the reason I was more bullish on the Warriors, I think, coming into the year. And I think what Kerr has done to hit the right buttons and almost has accentuated Curry, right? Like, it almost feels like the cutting his minutes has freed him up to be even more of himself when he's on the floor and has made him fresher and better. There's something to learn there. Now, like, there's things hanging over the team that I don't love. How Draymond is particularly picking fights with Taylor Jenkins, to me, is potentially like a hindrance to what Curry is going to be could accomplish this year, but he is undeniably like still one of the best in the league at 36, which in some ways is a surprise considering his frame.
Yeah,
you know, like his
and
frame
I think the minutes
is a real limitation.
And the minutes thing is fine. Like, this is what Tim Duncan did at the end of his career, right? And Steph and Tim Duncan to me was always a natural comparison because of what they mean to their teams and the culture that they set, and that's fine. Like, you could still be like this extremely impactful player in 30 minutes during the regular season, and then the playoffs come around, and you can unleash that a little bit.
All right, let's go to 7. I'll give you Curry at 6. I'm actually the more we talk about, I'm actually souring on Embiid a little bit. Who do you have at 7?
Anthony Davis.
So I have KD at 7.
I had Kevin Durant. We're splitting hairs here. I have Kevin Durant at 8.
Okay, I had like KD 7A and Davis 7B. It's really just like this might be another taste thing because I think it's Durant's ability to hit jump shots and the value he can provide. And like clearly the Suns, an entirely just more dysfunctional team when Durant is not playing. That's why I put Durant ahead of Davis, but it was very, very close.
Yeah, I think yes, Kevin Durant, all-time shot maker. Anthony Davis does everything else better than Kevin Durant. And I think that's where I kind of ended up being like, even Kevin Durant as a playmaker always left me wanting a little bit more. I think between him and AD, they play different positions, so it's a little bit harder, but actually maybe don't play different positions. They're both probably naturally power forwards, but to me, like the playmaking thing, Durant slight edge, kind of a wash, but Anthony Davis is defensive player of the year caliber, averaging almost 31 points per game. So there might be a little bit of just like a recency bias here for AD, but I also feel like I need to reward that in some way. Like the guy is averaging 31 points. He's second in the league in scoring and was first for a very long time before Giannis took it. So I'm giving Anthony Davis the slight edge here, but like I said, I got KD at 8, and you probably said it better. It's 7A, 7B.
So let's go Durant 7. And let's go 88, but it's splitting hairs. I think this is also the point, Wes, where it starts getting really there's a lot of different ways you could go. There's a lot of different splitting of hairs you could do. I think it gets even more so once we get past like 11 for me. Like once we get past 11, I'm gonna give you my next three, and we'll say
Okay.
Can I give you my next? Because I have three.
So I
more
have
guys.
one more player in this like Tatum, Steph, AD, Durant tier. So I feel like to me that line of demarcation is after this guy.
Okay, is it Anthony Edwards?
It is not.
Is it Joel Embiid? Is it LeBron James? Is it one of those three?
No.
Okay, so that's the next three guys for me. Is probably in order. It's probably Edwards, LeBron, Embiid.
Okay.
So
wow.
who do you have?
Interesting. I have Brunson
Jalen
here.
Brown.
No, I got Brunson here.
Okay. Yeah.
I Brunson is in that category with like Tatum, Steph, AD, KD. Like, just by virtue of him being on the roster, you don't have a chance to win the championship. But if he's the best player on a good roster, you are 100% in that mix. So I kind of think of him in the same way. And he's an incredible scorer. I mean, he's amazing.
Yeah. Last
Clutch,
year,
everything.
best. Yeah, last 2 years in particular, but last year in particular, the best years of his career.
Awesome playmaker, creates so
Awesome
much.
playmaker. A great leader too, which I think is
That matters
it's
here.
funny. Like I don't know how many guys we've actually named. I think would if you did like I miss those old player polls that like SI and stuff would do where you'd find out the leaders. I don't know how many guys that we've actually run through so far, Wes, would get like great leader remarks from their teammates. It'd be interesting to know.
Jokic, Shea, Steph, Tatum, at least from like the word out of Boston is, and then probably Brunson. Yeah, I think of all the guys to get like that leadership badge. Yeah.
Yeah, but it's like not everyone has that fully, right? It's like one of those things. Like Luka, I don't think Giannis is an interesting test case somewhere in there as well.
Giannis used to have it, right? But it's been a little rocky there. He's kind of
been a
has to
little-
go
been a
earn that Boy Scout badge again.
Been a little
right?
shaky. 100%.
So you had Brunson lower then though, but like
I have Brunson, like he would have been the next, like so I had those three guys and then Brunson. He's like right there.
All right, so I have Brunson 9. I think that guy's at the peak of his powers right now, 28 years old. Like I said, just I value very much that ability to create shots for yourself and for others. He's an advantage creator. He sets the tone of every game he plays in. He's there every single night for the Knicks. Every night he's working through it and he's making things happen. Like I value that consistency with him so much, where you could argue like LeBron, AD. What was the other guy you said? Embiid?
Yeah.
Or
I think
it's like the consistency there isn't there for me on an every night basis with those guys.
Yeah, at some point I just like feel like I can't put Embiid any lower.
You're gonna be surprised by how low I have Embiid.
Do you have him in the top 20 at least?
I do.
Okay.
So I have LeBron 10. So
Yeah,
now we're
I've-
out. So I got Brunson at 9, and now we're going to a new tier for me.
Okay.
And I have those
LeBron's
guys
ahead
that
of
you talked
tier
about.
then.
LeBron,
So-
can I just give you the tier? Because it's three of the guys that
please.
you talked about.
Yeah.
So I got LeBron at 10, Anthony Edwards at 11. I've got Mitchell at 12. I've got Devin Booker at 13. And I've got Embiid at 14.
Okay, let's do the Mitchell Booker thing first. Because I also have Mitchell ahead of Booker, and I don't think most people are going to have it that way.
Really?
I don't. I mean, I looked at the Ringer top 100 when we were prepping for this, Wes, and Booker's
Where'd
at
they
14,
have it?
Mitchell's at 15. They've Booker 14, Mitchell 15.
So they still have it within one. Okay.
Yes, but I think Mitchell, if I've seen a guy this year who there is a size in terms of height disadvantage. Booker has like the Kobe pull-up size shooting guard stuff ahead of Mitchell. Mitchell is like a little bit smaller. There's no doubt that has potential impacts deep in the playoffs. But Mitchell, the Mitchell we've seen this year, who has taken a willing step back to let his team flourish, who I think is a really good leader, doesn't sulk, sticks up for his guys, buys in every way, shape, or form, ultra competitive. And the verve he's played with this year, I think has shown you just how good that guy is. I have him ahead of Booker right now. I do.
I think he's a better shot maker than Devin Booker, which sounds crazy, considering how great of a shot maker Devin Booker is. And that's sort of his brand, right? Like the shot maker. But to me, Booker is an amazing shot maker. Like he's on this list for a reason. He's a better playmaker than Donovan Mitchell. I think he's just a better passer. Although I don't think it's like the gap is super wide, but I would still take Devin Booker to be my point guard if I had to pick one guy to run my offense. Devin Defensively, Booker can tap into it. I think Mitchell is consistently better defensively.
Mitchell, especially this year, he has been so competitive on defense in a way. Like, there's still a couple times a game where he does the star player thing where he lapses and he loses a guy in a cut. But like every single star player in the league does that. His ability, when he's needed to, the effort, the physicality, the hands for him on defense have been as good as it's been in Cleveland so far.
I just think he can. I don't know that he can hit higher highs than Booker because Booker scored like 70 or 60 in a game or whatever it was. But like, wait, Booker scored 70 and Mitchell scored 60, right? Or
Mitchell scored 71 in a game.
Right. So yeah, they could both do that, So it's I just think Mitchell kind of hits that like if you kind of go by percentages, like if 100% is hitting like those 70-point games, like which each of these guys can do, obviously. I feel like Mitchell is kind of riding in that like 85 to 90% zone more than Devin Booker is, if that makes sense. And his ability to get to the rim, I think, is really important. His ability to play above the rim, to me, that stuff just translates a little bit more and looks more like that kind of player who you can ride to a championship. So I have Mitchell slightly over Devin Booker. But it's so close because there'll be like a week where Devin Booker looks like one of the best 5 players on the planet. But Donovan Mitchell can also hit that for a week, and it's pretty remarkable. It's just sort of like, what week is it, But I think if you were to just tell me you get to pick one, Donovan Mitchell or Devin Booker, I'd be like, great, these are 2 awesome choices. It's like chocolate chip and like peanut butter cookies. Like, I'm great. I'm good with either one. I'm going to go Donovan Mitchell. I think I would like close my eyes and just pick Donovan Mitchell. But this is very similar to sort of Tatum and Shea. It's sort of like for me, it's like 12A, 12B.
Yeah, Brendan Clean is somewhere thinking about how he's going to kill us for putting Mitchell above Booker.
But I have Edwards over both of them. Did you have Edwards over both of them too?
I do as well. I think you have to. Even if I think like it is still a bet on him just like figuring out the upside fully and just like fully coalescing in a big moment. Like those other guys are both just more polished than him right now. It's indisputable that like he is not quite as polished as Mitchell and Booker, but I think the highs are just astronomically better.
I mean, the pull-up shooting thing has been a revelation. Like, to me, he was firmly in that group with to me it was Ant, Mitchell, Booker, a couple other guys you can kind of put in that area. To me, he's now above them. That pull-up shooting is such a threat, especially when we get to the playoffs. Like, in the postseason, we talk about a lot of isolation and how important that is, but like that pull-up 3 has become maybe the most important shot in basketball. And he's like, again, I think we talked about this. The fact that he just said, I watched Damian Lillard and copied his shot. Like, who does that? Like, you can't. And he just did that. And he's like, yeah, I just shoot like Damian Lillard now. And you're like, that's amazing because you finish like Ja Morant and now you have the 3-pointer like Damian Lillard. Like, that's an unstoppable offensive player. And then what he could do defensively is just different than what all these other guards can do. That's the
thing
real
I was going to
difference
show
maker.
as well. Like, the defense for him is an absolute difference maker.
In terms of the cleaning up, like he has like these really good like months where he's a really good playmaker, and then he has other months where it just feels like he's fumbling around out there a little bit in terms of leading the offense. I still feel better probably about like Mitchell or Booker making a really big decision than I do Anthony Edwards. But you also love the idea of Anthony Edwards having the ball in his hands and just going for the kill. So he's got that factor too. But Donovan Mitchell and Booker also have that. So I don't know. I have him above because, like you said, the defense stuff may be the difference maker.
And look, those guys are 28. Edwards is 23. Like, by the time he's 28, the decision-making stuff is probably going to get figured out. You would think.
Yeah.
Like, the trajectory he's on, it's he is 5 years behind those guys.
It's crazy.
It's
so good.
It's ridiculous. I mean, he's 23, and all these other guys we've talked about, like, the youngest ones are Tatum and Shea at 26. Everyone else is, 30 plus, right? Like, except for these guys kind of break that. Even Anthony Davis, 31. Embiid's 30. Brunson's 28 as well. He's the same age as Mitchell and Booker.
So tell me why I'm wrong to have Embiid this low at 14. Because my argument comes down to, yes, he hits those highs, and his highs are incredibly high. I don't care. To me, when you're like, when I'm considering the elite players is your ability to do it every night and bring it every night. And maybe there's recency bias here, but he's also consistently injured, chronically hurt. This knee is a real problem, and projecting forward, I don't know that this gets better for him. And he might just be entering a different stage of his career. So I have him, like, I'm like, hey, right now, would you take Booker, Mitchell, Edwards, LeBron, Jalen Brunson, like Kevin Durant. Would you take these guys over Embiid? And I said, yeah, absolutely. Like in a second, I would take all these guys over Embiid.
I think the reason to me, I would probably have him a little bit higher. And I think you've talked me into probably having a little bit lower just because of the dependability aspect of it. I think I was underrating that in thinking about this. From like 21 to 22 through last year, even though last year only played 39 games, I don't think except for Jokic probably, there was not a more dominant player per minute on the court than Joel Embiid for like 3 or 4 years.
Mm-hmm.
And maybe the cliff has just come. Maybe that has happened. But I guess until like we get to April and it's just happened, then I kind of just want to believe that maybe there's still like a little bit of time left in that prime before it's like totally time to be like, okay, this is cooked now.
So I think this is where it gets interesting. Is the final, what do we have? 1, 2, 3, 6 guys?
Yeah.
I think this is where you and I would have probably our disagreements in terms of who's even on this list. So
I think
have we
Jaylen
skipped
Brown
anybody?
Jaylen Brown to me is next. Jaylen Brown is absolutely me like 15. I think he has to be. I think he was arguably the best Celtic last year. I think he's an incredible defender. I think he's a great finisher. I think he's clutch. I think the poise is there. I think he's earned his spot among like the top 15 guys in the league.
I have Paolo next.
I have Paolo in my 20. I have him in at like 19 or 20 as of right now.
He was so good before he got hurt, man. Like that guy was taking a leap.
If he had not gotten hurt and kept that up, he'd be like right here, maybe like 16, maybe ahead of Brown. But just because he got hurt and we didn't get to see it fully realized, I have to knock that just a little bit. It's not like fair, but we're picking nits here. That's what we have to do at this point.
I might be a little early in putting Paolo this high, but I feel good about it. I have Chet at 16.
You have Chet above Wemby at this point.
Yes.
Because I have Wemby.
He's a better player right now.
Wembanyama's offense is the I think what holds this back a little bit, but I think Wembanyama on defense is just so ridiculous. Not that Chet isn't.
Yeah.
But I think Wembanyama is like almost in his own tier defensive player. I kind of think like I think Chet is also getting closer to Mobley and Wemby than people have really talked about as of yet. Mobley to me is like right up against those guys, and I think Wemby is the best of those three right now. So I would have Wemby like 16, 17.
So I have Chet 16. I have Wembanyama 17. So this is very much like a B situation. Also, I'm not gonna quibble over it. I like so it's a context issue also here. Like Wembanyama's asked to do everything for that Spurs team, but I just don't love the bad habits that he's building. Like less than a quarter of your shots when you're 7'4" within the restricted area is a problem to me.
It's
Holmgren just feels more polished, like he knows what he is supposed to do, but at the same time he just gets to play a role on a really good Thunder team.
He's playing with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander
with the fourth best
Jalen
player
Williams.
in the league.
Yeah, like he's playing with like a really good team. And how many guys when the Spurs are really good with Wembanyama in like 3 years or something? How many of the guys on the Spurs are even going to be on the team? Probably not that many.
Right. So, maybe Sohan because they're best buds. But, like, Wembanyama is going to go up this list. He's going to end up being the better player than Chet. But I know part of me just thinks Chet's a little bit better right now. But this is a total context issue, and I might just be blinded by that. I probably have Jaylen Brown too low. I do have him at 20. He's in my top 20. Okay. And I'm a Jaylen Brown guy. But I have De'Aaron Fox and Bam Adebayo over Brown. And I could be accused of being a Heat homer. But to me, like you're talking about guys who are top of their class defenders. Bam is absolutely in that list. I think he's a little bit of a slump offensively, but that to me isn't representative of who he is. And I think a lot of people are knocking him off because of this slump that he's in to start the year.
I have Bam in my top 20 as well. I have De'Aaron Fox in my top 20.
Yep.
I have Fox ahead of Sabonis, which some people would have Sabonis, I think, ahead of him.
Not anymore. Can't do it.
Stats. Yeah, I agree.
Can't do it, dude. De'Aaron Fox, he's okay. Very early to even have this conversation. I understand. He's like a lock at this point to make first team All NBA. Like if we were gonna do it right now, it would be like him and Shea. Like maybe you could argue.
No positions. It's no positions.
Oh, that's right. So never mind. So forget it. But
he's
one
of your first.
He's one of the first guards off your list if you start going down the guards. He's whatever. Yes, I agree. I think as early as last year, you could have said maybe Sabonis is the best player. I've always thought I thought De'Aaron Fox was the best player last year. I think he's the best player now. To me, it's very clear. It's De'Aaron Fox.
Yeah,
That dude hit another
he's
level
shooting-
this year.
He's shooting 57% on
Unbelievable.
twos, which is
Unreal.
like a back up. It's like it is back up to above the number he hit in his one All-Star season 2 years ago when the Kings really took off. It is like back to that Fox where last year that sagged a little bit and now it surged back up. I also think it's notable, Wes, that we both have him above Ja and above Halliburton. I think both guys
Yep.
in this range, but we both have Fox ahead of him, and I've banned my top 20 as well, to be clear.
So we ended up
And
having
Maxey.
the same players, the exact same players in our top 20. That's amazing. Different
I
order,
think-
obviously.
Different. Let's run through. Let's just run through this to make sure we covered all of our bases here. So let's come up with a consensus list that we will throw out on socials, and I will type this as we go here.
Well, why don't we just put them both out and people can debate them, tell us
All right,
who's wrong.
that's better for content. Okay, so
Yeah, better content.
all right, I'll
Go
type
yours
mine.
first.
All right, so I'm gonna let's go back and forth. We both have Jokic at 1,
Mm-hmm.
Luka 2,
Yep. Giannis at 3.
Giannis at 3. I'm gonna reverse my. I'm gonna go Tatum at 4.
Okay. I have Shea and then I have Tatum.
I have SGA at 5,
Okay.
and then we're getting into
I had Steph at 6.
yeah, I had Steph there as well. I think Steph is gonna have like the second best resume of his generation besides LeBron, and it's
Mhm.
just not even gonna be like
It's not
an
close.
issue there. No, I have Durant at
I got-
7. I believe you have AD.
I had AD at 7 and then Durant at 8.
I have AD at 8.
Brunson at 9.
10. Yeah, I have Edwards at 9,
Okay.
and then I'm gonna go LeBron at 10.
That's who I have.
I'm gonna go Embiid at 11.
Okay. I have Ant at 11.
Okay. Then I'm gonna go Brunson next.
Okay.
So I have Brunson at 12.
I have Mitchell and then Booker, 12 and
You
13.
know what? That's true. I actually I'm putting Mitchell at 12. I'm putting Booker at 13. I'm putting Brunson at 14.
Oh, yeah. Brunson way
And then
lower than I do. Okay. I have
and then I'm
Embiid
putting
at 14.
I'm putting Jaylen Brown at 15.
Okay.
This is 16 through 20. I have not ranked yet, so we're doing this live. And I've also
Yeah, I got like I said, I probably put Jalen a little too low here, but I've got Paolo at 15, Chet at 16, Wembanyama at 17, De'Aaron Fox at 18, Bam at 19, Jaylen Brown at 20.
All right, let me finish because we're gonna actually have a couple different names at the back end here, which I think is good.
This is good radio.
Well, I'm thinking about. I am actively.
You don't want
thinking
Ben
about,
Caro
like-
back there, huh?
No, I have Palo. I don't have. Here, I'll tell you. We're gonna run through this right now. I do not have Chet in my top 20 as of right now.
Okay. That's
So
fair. You
this-
have Halliburton
this
at 20.
This is my 20. Jokic, Luka, Giannis, Tatum, SGA, Steph, Durant, AD, Edwards, LeBron, Embiid, Mitchell, Booker, Brunson, Jaylen Brown, and I really kind of feel like I should have Jaylen Brown ahead of Brunson, but I'm going to leave it. Wembanyama at 16, De'Aaron Fox, Bam Adebayo at 18, Banchero at 19, and Halliburton at 20.
I'm not going to quibble with your list in terms of the names. I think that you have Embiid too high.
Yeah, I think that's totally fair. I just am like, I have a really hard time with him, like separating the fact that like there is clearly a cliff that feels like it is here versus like the dominance of 4 years ago. Like I have a hard time just like fully accepting that it's done. You know.
Yep.
Who would you say, Wes, of a guy you don't have in your top 20 right now? Let's say end of the year, end of next year, maybe even. Is there anyone that you're like, I'm very sure they are gonna like make a big rise and a push for this, or someone that maybe you would eye as having the possibility of doing so,
By the end of this season?
or next year? Let's do even a little further on. I think this year we kind of know who's on that trajectory, like a Wembanyama, Chet. Is there anyone you're just kind of eyeing as like someone that could rise up into the top 20 at some point?
Oh, that's like not on this list.
Yeah, that's not on this list. I have 2.
I think John Morant can clearly get there. I just got to see it.
That actually, yeah, that'd be 3. That'd actually be 3 for me.
And then I don't know who the guys that you're thinking of.
I think I don't have Chet there, so let's say Chet as well. But then also, I think Mobley and Sengun would be the other ones.
Okay.
Sengun could absolutely take the place of like slightly defensive flawed center who's a stats offensive monster in the Sabonis mold and be like a All NBA fringe top 20 guy.
Mhm.
There's some rankings I've seen that still have like Cat above some of these guys, and I'm just like, are we sure about that?
Cat's having a great year, but yeah, you can't.
He's
you
having a
can't put
good
him
year
there.
on one end of the floor. He's having an absolute dog shit year on the other side of the floor.
That's fair. No, I actually don't have anybody else that I'm looking at. No, I think like we could do like the Jalen Williamses, the Cade Cunninghams, Scotty Barnes, like maybe, but I don't. Unless
Yeah,
there's something
there's,
that
like-
I don't see happening. I think this order is going to change a lot over the next couple of years. Like Ant is probably going to rise, Wembanyama is going to rise. Like some of these guys are just going to move up as some of the older players move down. But I think mostly, like, to me, like Halliburton, Morant, these are sort of the guys who are going to crack this next sort of, if they can kind of get it all together.
20 through 100 also, by the way, like maybe
Impossible.
like 30 to 100 is just like convince me of anything you want. You could tell me anything is true.
That's why I kind of like viewing it in tiers too. It's just like, okay, like you get to a point where you're just like, you're in high level role players, right? And so you're like, now the entire context of the roster matters, like how you view these players. Like Josh Hart has more, like is more valuable to some teams than other teams. It's just like, so whatever. Yeah,
So
like, it's very hard.
Let's do tiers real quick. Tell me your tiers, and we'll end there.
My top 20?
Tier 1, yeah. Like, how did you break it? Let's just break out the
Yeah.
tiers.
So tier 1 was Jokic, Luka, Giannis, Shea. Those are the Brad Pitts. They can carry your film. You don't really need much help. They're going to give you a chance just by being on your roster. My next tier was Tatum, Steph, AD, Kevin Durant, and Jalen Brunson. I have a third tier of LeBron, Anthony Edwards, Donovan Mitchell, Devin Booker, and Joel Embiid. And that tier is like, I know you can hit those highs. You're just not hitting them as much as I need you to hit them to be up a tier.
Okay.
But there's nights where you look like top tier.
Yeah.
And then the fourth and final tier was Paolo,
Yeah.
Chet, Wembanyama, De'Aaron Fox, Bam, and Jaylen Brown, where it's like, yep, like right now, second best player on a championship winning team, probably.
So my top tier would be Jokic, Luka, Giannis, Tatum, SGA. Your number one guys. Tier 2 are guys that are a little bit older, still very, very good. You could win a title as your best guy, but it takes a little bit there. That's Steph, Durant, AD. Tier 3 is my biggest tier. That's like lead guys on that can win a title with a great supporting roster. That's Edwards, LeBron, Embiid, Mitchell, Booker, Brunson, Jalen. And then tier 4 is like the guys that I think are just a little bit beyond that, need a little bit more help or have some flaws I don't know what to do with. And that's Wembanyama, Fox, Bam, Banchero, and Tyrese.
Yep.
We're going to get Wes. I'm going to predict this right now. Within the next 5 years, we're going to have like the 30th best player, or maybe the 25th best player in the NBA be the best player in a team that wins a title. I think we're going to have that happen.
I don't think so, but maybe. I don't. Who knows,
I
man?
just think like 1 year, some team with the salary cap is going to have like this stacked roster, and they're just going to like figure it out. Or like the Magic with Paolo was like the 17th best guy in the league, win a title.
Congrats to the Magic.
The parade at Disneyland would be some stuff. The
Right
least
down Main Street, baby.
you got to fly to Vegas, then fly back to Orlando to do the wholesome celebration after you do normal NBA player stuff. But we're gonna end there. That was a jam-packed episode. Thanks to Zach Cohen again.
Yep.
We'll be back next week with one episode before Thanksgiving. Enjoy your weekend. Enjoy the hoops. We'll talk to you soon.